Now, I did want to ask, did you hear that okay? You did? Good. All right, we got one person zooming in today. So, let me put this up. Okay, so we got lots of four squares going on. We just came out of game theory, and now we've got this last four square we left off with last time was thinking about public goods and private goods. So I want to start there. We didn't quite get exactly to where I wanted to be, so we had a box that looked like game theory, but we weren't doing game theory. We had, I had rivalry over here. So this was rival and non-rival, or did I have excludable? Excludable. So we had the category, the characteristics of being excludable or non-excludable, and rival and non-rival. So what did we call goods that have the feature of being excludable and rival? Private goods. So these were the cheeseburgers, pizza, beer, etc., etc. Private goods have the characteristic of being excludable and non-rival, and rival and excludable. Public goods fell into this quadrant. And I tried to emphasize last time that these are sometimes provided by the government, but not every government provided good is a public good. And sometimes it's characterized that way in layman's terms, like the normal language that we use. But in econ class, public goods means a specific thing. The good takes on the characteristics of being non-rival and non-excludable. And so national defense was kind of one of our classic examples of a public good. All right. And then we had a few that were excludable but non-rival. So we can all enjoy this classroom together. So education might fall into this. The movie theater might fall into this. The theme park might fall into this. Where we've got multiple people being able to enjoy the good, subject to maybe some congestion issues, as Jeff brought up. But it is excludable. In other words, there's a market for it. We can put up a fence around the theme park and have security watching to make sure that people aren't sneaking in or out or sneaking into the park. So we can afford to pay for that. So it's not cost prohibitive to do that with a theme park product. All right, and then where we left off was down here. So, and these, by the way, are often called a club good. This is one, I don't think your textbook actually calls them this, but a club good, if you think about a country club or a golf course, a club good where multiple people can use the good at the same time, but yet it's excludable. So it's sometimes called a club good. So we got public goods, club goods, private goods, and then this last category is a little nebulous, called common resources. Common resources. And so the one I put up here was ocean fish. Ocean fish. Another example might be the air. So a lot of these are going to be natural resources. I'm sorry, what? Fireworks went more on the public good, non-excludable and non-rival. So a bunch of people can watch the fireworks show at one time, and you can't really keep people from paying for it. So ocean, fish, and air, how are those rival? Air's kind of weird too, that we don't think about, we just basically take for granted. All right, so yes, if you breathe it in, maybe we should all take a deep breath together. What you blow out, is that air? Is that the same air, the composition of the molecules? What are we blowing out again? Carbon dioxide. Yeah, that's stuff I don't even remember. I always have to ask the class what we're blowing out. I can't remember if it's carbon monoxide or dioxide or whatever. That's for other people to study in other disciplines. I just care about the nature of it. So So that is a common resource because it is exhaustible. If you go to places like LA, they're known for their smog and stuff. You'll start to see that air is sometimes a precious commodity, right? A precious thing in certain places as there starts to be less clean air. We could even maybe define it that way in a particular place. All right, with ocean fish, one person catching that tuna means somebody else can't catch that tuna. And so when I bring up stuff like ocean fish, what does that call to your attention? Some of the issues that society faces, especially over the last 200, 300 years, when we bring up stuff like ocean fish.
Like there's not stuff like that.
Okay. And so what do we call that when species start getting killed off? Extinction. So without having excludability somehow factored in, we tend to overuse and abuse goods that fall into this quadrant. And so it's called the tragedy of the commons. And we'll talk more about that next chapter. But the overuse and abuse, basically we start to use too much of it. And so the issues of global warming are questionable sometimes with different opinions from science on is it true, is it not true, whatever, greenhouse gases, blah, 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 all the environmental type issues. If it's exhaustible or not, are we doing too much of whatever we're doing? Is it caused by humans or is it not? That's a current pretty hot debate out in the science world on how much is too much or should we do it. But at the same time, Mother Nature has a certain amount of capacity to absorb activities, a certain amount of pollution, let's say, right? So Mother Nature can rejuvenate herself. If you don't mind me characterizing the female, maybe that's bad, a little gender bias here, but Mother Nature can kind of rejuvenate itself. So it can handle a certain amount, but maybe once we reach that critical threshold, things start to deteriorate. So we got all kind of interesting issues with common resources and environment. So there's a whole section of economics that is on environmental economics. I had some buddies in graduate school that studied fish populations up in the Iowa lakes, and I had a buddy that worked for the DNR, and he was in ecology, and they partnered up on a research project where it was part of my friend's PhD dissertation. So all kinds of interesting stuff going on there. A lot of them do. All we have to do is ask ourselves, is it rival and is it excludable? So if it's oil, are we able to exclude people? To some degree, yes. Oil's kind of a funny one. We'll talk a little bit more. For the most part, if you own this area of land, you've got drilling rights. Your little section, I'm really kind of jumping into lecture material next time, but here's your little 1,000-acre farm. In theory, you own right to the core of the earth this, and you have air rights all the way up into space. So that's our rule of property rights. Whoever's got this little section, in theory, has that. And so if you dip down your little straw and suck out a big oil reserve, then you've got it excludable, right? Nobody else can come onto your land and grab it. However, where it gets kind of interesting is if the oil reserve goes like this, and somebody else owns this one, and they're both dipping their straw down into the oil, it's kind of a first come, first served basis because it's all the same reservoir, right? Kind of draining down. So they kind of run into issues like that can be a little difficult with mineral, same thing with mineral rights and other things besides oil. So yeah, lots of interesting topics. Okay, but let's stick to public goods for now. I probably said even more than I was planning on, but this is kind of the exciting stuff that's coming up in our pipeline. For 16 and 17 is where we're going to be talking about these sorts of issues. Most of the focus on this chapter is on public goods. And so I want to think about the demand curve for a public good, first of all. What does that demand curve look like? So, demand curve for a public good. going to start it here. So what I'd like to do is put 3 graphs side by side with each other. We'll go ahead and do 3 graphs side by side. And this is the same picture we drew back in deriving the market demand curve, which probably was chapter 3 or 4, whatever, early on in the consumer theory. So we've got Tom, Dick, and Harry and a bunch of consumers, and then we've got the market demand. And if we were talking about cheeseburgers, we've got Dick's demand for a cheeseburger maybe looks like this. And Tom's demand for a cheeseburger looks like this, right? Some might like it more than others. We have heterogeneous preferences. We don't have identical agents. And so some may hate hamburgers, some may be vegetarian, some might like it a little bit but not a lot. And how did we create the market demand curve, big Q, by thinking about the individual demands? Who remembers that part? What are we going to do to create the market demand curve? Add them all up at a certain price, right? So we're going to add them all up at a certain price. So let's say here at $7, Tom wants to buy 5 hamburgers. And Dick wants to buy 2. Now, there's a whole bunch of other consumers, but if we just allow our model here to just have these 2, if these guys were the only guys in the market, then 5 plus 2 gives us the market demand curve at $7 of 7. Five plus 2 equals 7. Now, if we drop the price to 6, then Tom picks up an extra burger, but Dick has a lot more elastic response to that, and he picks up 5. And then once again, that means the market, there's a demand for 11 hamburgers at the market price of $6. And so we'd have a point on the market demand curve that looks like this. Just using those 2 points for simplicity, we've got the demand curve. What have we learned that the demand curve also represents? What's it also equal to? What's our other title we put on demand? Marginal benefit. So the demand curve is the marginal benefit curve. Our thought here is that Tom's preferences are reflected in the choices he makes at different prices. So we know that Tom is getting at least $6 worth of benefit from the 6th hamburger, right? Now he might be getting more, by the way, possibly, but we know that he entered the market. Well, I guess we're looking at Tom's individual demand specifically. I take that back. He's not getting any more. At 6, he's getting the 6th hamburger gives him $6 worth of benefit. He's getting more from the previous ones, but the 5th hamburger gives Dick $6 worth of benefit. And so this is the marginal benefit for Tom. This is the marginal benefit for Dick. And this is the social benefit. Now I'm going to do a little change on you, so watch out. The marginal social benefit curve. So we're introducing a new concept this chapter. All I'm doing is making a distinction between private benefits and social benefits. If these are the only 2 people in society, then we're saying society's benefits is reflected in this demand curve, which also reflects the private benefits. Well, I'll tell you my method to my madness later. These two things aren't going to necessarily be equal later. So the private benefit curve, the way we've always been doing it, is now equal to society's benefit too. So those are one and the same. All right. Now, this is the hamburger case. What if this was weapons in our arsenal? What if this was bombs? What if this was bombs? So what if Q was equal to the number of bombs in inventory for national defense? What if Q equals the number of bombs? What does that demand curve look like? So, what does that demand curve look like if it's bombs rather than burgers? So you got to get thinking about this little four-square thing again. What's different about bombs as opposed to burgers? One's a public good. And what's going to be the implication of that for the demand curve or the benefit curve for society? What's going to be the implication there?
Wouldn't it be perfectly elastic?
Short answer is no. So it doesn't necessarily deal with the elasticity. So let me run through the burger logic with you again. At a price of $7, Tom is getting $7 worth of benefit, which induces him to buy 5 burgers. Dick buys 2. Society gets 7. And the benefit of the 7th burger was $7 to the last person who got it. It's different with bombs. There's no benefit? Okay, our benefits will keep increasing. What do you mean by that, Tyler?
The more money we spend, the safer we feel.
Okay, that's not quite where we need to be. Because that's going to be true. Our total, I mean, just to say what you had there, our total benefit, which looks like our total utility, is going up. We start to feel safer and safer, but the amount of safety that the 7th bomb gave me was less than the amount of safety that the 5th bomb gave me, right? Law of diminishing marginal utility. So the amount of benefit I'm getting is diminishing. Law of diminishing marginal utility. So you're correct, but that's not the issue at hand here.
Tom and Dick don't have to give anything.
Okay, so that might be part of it, but we're not looking at what they have to give because I don't have supply, I don't have price, I'm not bringing those issues in. I'm looking at their real demand. This is how they really feel about bombs. Alyssa, what were you thinking? Okay, since it's non-excludable, they'd have all the same numbers. I think you're kind of touching on the right topic, but not saying it right. Okay, now you're starting to get on it. So the bombs are for everybody, but I need more than what Tag just said. So the bombs are for everybody. Everybody can share the bombs. So what is the benefit? So what Tag said is you're not going to be adding these because you're sharing these. Okay, would you take the highest one? So did you take the max? Would you average them? What are you guys averaging? Taking the highest or averaging? What are you doing? What are you saying you're taking the average of? The quantities or the prices or what? The quantities at a certain price? So, I'm not hearing the right thing yet, but we're getting close. What is the benefit to society of the 5th bomb? the fifth bomb, what is the benefit to society of adding the fifth bomb to our inventory? Look at these numbers, and there's enough information for you to tell me what the benefit of the fifth bomb is. Nope, not 6.5. That'd be, so you did the averaging thing, which I think Kyler was bringing up. Why would it not be 6.5? Why would it not be averaging the two? So you took, Alyssa, kind of explain what you were doing there with the half. I'll see if I can tease it out of us in general, but I want to hear what you were thinking with the half.
The $5 is at 7 and the other.
Okay, so for Tom, 5 bombs gave 7 units of satisfaction, $7 of satisfaction, measured in terms of dollars. The fifth bomb for Dick gave how much? 6. So she averaged them. Is that the right thing to do? Answer no. What should we do? Nope. And so that's taking the max. That's what you said before. Take the maximum that we had. 7's the highest. $6? No, we don't want to take the lowest.
Just add them together.
Why would we add them?
Because if it's the total, I think we have to add all of them.
Are they both enjoying the exact same bomb at the exact same time and getting the, not the exact same benefit, but getting benefit from that bomb at the same time? Yes. That's our non-rival assumption. So that fifth bomb brings $7 of benefit to Tom. The fifth bomb brings $6 of benefit to Dick. They're both members of society. So the fifth bomb brings in how much benefit to society? 13. We add them up. So we're going to add up the benefit, and our first point up here is going to be at $13 for the social benefit curve. Because of the non-rivalry assumption, they're going to be able to share that. All right, so the fifth bomb, let me come to my clean palette here. So the fifth bomb, 1 point is at $13 worth of satisfaction. I guess since I already have a 6th here, I got the 6 for Tom. The 6th bomb for Dick is different, which is what we'd expect. They're both going to end up sharing it, but now Dick only gets $5 of benefit. Tom gets 6, so together society gets 11. So the 6th bomb gives us $11 of satisfaction jointly. And the social benefit curve, the market demand curve for a public good, is equal to the sum of the individual benefits of all I equal 1 to n people. We're just going to add up the benefits. So on your papers, just to make sure you got this, you might want to maybe circle at 5, we get 7 plus 6 for 5 for Dick equals our 13 for the 5 here. That's the connection. And a great test question would be, why do we add the benefits? Because the benefits are non-rival. Everybody can enjoy it at the same time. All right, so it's also called the vertical sum of the individual benefits because we're adding vertically the benefits of each. So let me write some of this down. So note, for private goods, beer and pizza, we have the horizontal sum is some of the language that you'll see in the textbook. We have the horizontal sum of individual demands to derive the market demand. And that's what we did way back in the early chapters. The horizontal sum. We were adding, at each price, we added the quantities. At each price, add the quantities, little q. And the sum of the little q's gives you big Q, the market demand. That was this picture here for the private. So make sure you don't get confused here. This is market demand for a private good. This one, we're talking about the quantity of bombs, and that's the demand curve for a public good. So for a public good, we have the vertical sum. So note number 2 is you need to vertically sum individual demands for a public good due to non-rivalry. Due to the non-rivalry of the public good. What do we mean by vertical sum? At each quantity, which is now going to be shared, at each quantity, add price. Just the opposite of what we did with the vertical. Add the price that equals the individual benefit. Okay, questions there at all? All right, well, the next thing to think about then is what is the optimal provision of the public good? How many bombs should we have? What's the correct amount of bombs to have in our arsenal? We observe that there's still diminishing returns, diminishing utility to bombs, just like there was cheeseburgers. Again, like I was saying, the 100th bomb gives me less satisfaction than the very first bomb. The very first bomb, I'm feeling pretty good, like we were really vulnerable. And now we got a bomb at least, and we can have a threat. So the very first bomb gave me a lot of satisfaction. But the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, maybe there was some increasing benefit because if we went to war, we'd get enough bombs that we could handle a war. But eventually, extra bombs have diminishing benefit. Because otherwise, if it didn't, we could just spend money on bombs all day and we'd all be really happy, right? We spend all of our money on bombs, but that doesn't make sense. So we see the law of diminishing marginal utility reflected in the market demand curve for bombs. How do we figure the optimal amount of bombs to have? What's that? Okay, good. So let's think about that. So if I'm interpreting you right, Kyler, you're saying when this thing starts to go negative, like here? Okay? So Kyler is suggesting that we'd want to be here where the benefit eventually turns to 0. The last bomb gives us 0 units of satisfaction. Does everybody agree with that?
I think it should be where on the curve.
Okay.
Top of it.
At the top of maximizing the benefit, actually this would be the top.
Oh, never mind.
This would end up being the top. No, I'm glad you brought that up. So if we're thinking about the total benefit curve, where it would reach the tippy top would be this point. So we would be maximizing the social benefit. But is that the right amount of bombs to buy? Do we always want to max it out to the total benefit? Jenna?
Isn't that where it changes from
No, that part wouldn't play into it as far as if we calculated the elasticities, because it would still be true with the benefit going down. Zach?
Doesn't it depend on where else the money can be used?
Ooh.
Other than that?
So what are you bringing in? What do you mean? What else the money can be used? Give me.
Like today, if we're going to use the money on bombs or the highway for an easy one, you could use if you're going to get more benefit out of fixing the highway than you are than fixing.
So you mean you got to pay for this stuff? I thought they were free. Doesn't the government just buy them? Make them somehow? Well, actually, private companies make them, typically. And the government buys them from private companies, sometimes American companies, most of the time American companies, but not always, as we've learned. Sometimes that's a point of contention. So if we bring the cost into the picture, how does that change things? So if they were free, let me flip it on you. If they were free, how many bombs should we buy? Kyler. You got it. So if the marginal cost of a bomb was 0, how much does the first bomb cost? Nothing. How about the 5th bomb? Nothing. How about the 6th bomb? Nothing. How about the 7th bomb? Nothing. How about the 100,000th bomb? Nothing. If the marginal cost of a bomb were 0, then that's absolutely right. You'd want to be right here. This would be the amount of bombs we should have, which would be, according to my numbers here, 13 bombs. We'd want to buy 13 bombs if the cost of every bomb was zip. Marginal cost equals marginal benefit. We're not going anywhere differently than where we were before, right? So but now we're thinking a little bit bigger. We're thinking about, well, what's the cost to society of making a bomb? What's the cost to society of making a bomb? What do you think? Where would we get that answer? Potential malfunctions? Okay. Where else? What else? How does society determine the cost of a bomb? In other words, what that would be.
Where the money could be.
Okay, where the money could be. I want to run with Todd's comment because that's touching on the right thing, but I don't think you're in the right spot, but you're starting to dabble the right place. How do we know where there might be a better place for that money to go? Okay, allocative efficient, that's where we want to be, ultimately.
Does it go back to society's opportunity cost?
Absolutely. How does society's opportunity cost of a bomb get determined? How does society's opportunity cost of a bomb get determined? Whose individuals? What agent are we thinking about that we know? I kind of hinted at it already. Where are we getting these bombs from? A private company. Now, how do they determine whether it's worth it to build a bomb or butter? I wanted to come up with something flowery. Bunnies. Where does a private company determine whether it's better to build a bomb or bunnies? Demand, yes. Profit. That evil lurking giant that we all tend to hate. In a market system that's competitive, what do we know about what that company will do? Which one are they going to be gravitating towards? Bunnies or bombs? Whatever makes the most money, right? And through active competition, if the market's competitive, how much money are these companies going to make in the long run? Whether they build bombs or whether they build bunnies, what are they going to make in the long run? A what? What kind of profit? A normal profit, that's right. We're going to reach a point where companies are groping their way through society with their freedom that they have to do whatever they want in the United States. They're not being coerced by big government or otherwise, in theory, right? And so they are looking for the best dollar. Where do they put their money? Where do they put their money? Let's put it in bonds. Let's put it in bunnies. Whatever one gets me the highest rate of return, I'm going to go to. And if that rate of return on bunnies is obnoxious, is it going to attract more companies to it or less? More, and as it attracts more, what happens to the price of bunnies? They go down, right? That's what we learned in the perfect competition chapter. That's the competitive forces. We also saw it in monopolistic competition. So we've got this sorting out through the market mechanism, through competition, of the prices of these goods coming to some amount that reflects society's cost. The marvelous market system. All on its own, not through one person's thought, but through the collection of thought of many, through healthy competition, we come to an efficient price of bombs. We come to an efficient price of bunnies, right? Whatever that price is out in the market system, it reflects the true cost of pursuing that activity. If there was something that was better, they'd go and do it. And so in a competitive market, which is a question mark, by the way, with the weapons industry, potentially, we'll talk more about that later, but in a competitive market, if those weapons are running $11 a weapon, right? $11 is the price, then society's cost is reflected in the marginal cost of the firm that's supplying the weapon. The private cost is society's cost. If it's not, somebody else will be doing it, right? There'll be competition. We'll have the market system kind of working itself out so that there is a cost. The price that Guns R Us has on the shelves for their bombs, that is society's cost. That society's cost is embodied in the price, as long as that price came from a competitive system. If it didn't, we might have problems. Then we might not be reflecting it. All right, so now if the cost of bombs, whatever the price at Guns R Us is known, and it's 11, how many bombs would be efficient for society to have? 6. Where the social cost equals the social benefit. That is the allocatively efficient quantity of bombs right there. So QAE, allocative efficiency, occurs where social cost equals social benefit. The baby step we took with you in the early chapters was that the private cost is society's cost. The private benefits of Tom and Dick are reflected in the social benefit. The social benefit curve is the private benefit curve, so we didn't make any distinction. That's where we're going to start to make a difference here in this chapter, is breaking those apart and see what the impact is. Okay, let me pause there for a sec. Questions, comments? Now, the political marketplace. In your handouts, if you guys got these, I know we haven't been referencing them lately, but if you've got your sheets handy, I was hoping for you to bring those to class. It's not a big thing, it's just kind of a look at the political marketplace. In this handout, we've got businesses and households being the consumers of bombs, right? So when we're looking at public goods that need to be provided by the government, which I haven't totally addressed yet either, is it the rivalry problem or the excludability problem that leads us to needing maybe the government to be the better provider of public goods? Kyler? Excludability. So if you look at that list, the 4-square list, we had theme parks, movie theaters, education, we had cheeseburgers, hamburgers, all the stuff that we can buy and sell at private companies. The key feature is not rivalry. Often we can handle that feature, but it's excludability. If you're able to exclude non-payers from the good, then it's possible to have a private company run that business and supply that good to society. With true public goods, the market fails to produce the optimal amount. The market fails to produce. Let me go back to this for a second to highlight that. If the marginal cost of a bomb is 11, is Tom going to buy any on his own? No. The cost is up here, although maybe I didn't go high enough. Maybe he would buy one if we go higher. But Dick, for sure, I truncated here. The cost is 11. So no individual agent is going to be willing to supply the bombs on their own. Now, if I maybe do extend this one, I guess I was kind of cheating a little bit, but if this one does come up here to 12 and 11 somewhere up here, will there be some bombs in society if the marginal cost is 11? Is Dick going to provide any? No. Is Tom going to provide some? Yes. Actually, Tom would be willing to buy maybe one bomb at 11. And is Dick going to chip in for that? He doesn't get any benefit, is what his demand curve says. If he did get benefit from it, he might have incentive to not do it anyway if he thinks one's enough, because Tom's going to provide it all by himself. Either way we cut it, are we getting the efficient quantity of bombs? No, we've got one. If Tom will buy it on his own, and he doesn't care that Dick gets to free ride on his spending, if he doesn't mind that, he'll buy one bomb, but one bomb is not allocatively efficient. One bomb is right here, and at one bomb, society's benefit is up here, society's cost is down here. We'd be better off having more bombs all the way to this quantity, where the cost of the last bomb is equal to society's benefit that they get from the last bomb. So there'd be an underproduction of the good because of the non-rivalry problem. All right, and that's why the market tends to fail. The market doesn't work so hot with goods that are non-rival and non-excludable. Where's my erase? Aha.
So that means that marginal cost always has to be above.
It doesn't mean that it has to be, but as it would lower, if marginal cost was lower, if marginal cost was 7, how many bombs would be bought? At 7, how many bombs would be bought? We'd be right back to the cheeseburger, right? Dick would pick up 5 bombs, Tom would pick up 5 bombs, and Dick would pick up a couple on their own, and maybe we'd have a private arsenal of 7. But that would stop there with only having 7 in the market at $7, and so we wouldn't get. We'd still be underproducing the amount if we looked at more and more people being out there. The fact that they're not using the knowledge that they could be sharing them. All right. So a couple comments here. Let's see. What did I just say before going into that? Let's see. Efficient quantity of the public good occurs where the marginal social benefit of the last one produced is equal to the marginal social cost. So this is QAE. The free market will tend to underproduce, not produce enough. The free market will tend to underproduce the public good. Because people will only buy according to their self-interest. They're not going to take into account other people's benefits. And so if costs are high enough, nobody will buy them. If marginal cost is high enough, nobody has incentive to buy any, even though the sum of the individual marginal benefits is greater than or equal to the cost of that bomb. So if the cost of a bomb is high, it's likely that nobody's going to buy them on their own, even though if we added up everybody's benefit because it's shared, right? That's the marginal social benefit with non-rivalry, that we're sharing the good. We should be buying some, but we can't figure out how to do it, maybe without the government forcing the issue with tax. All right. Let me give you that last scenario of maybe somebody would buy some. It might be possible. It would be. Let me rephrase that differently. It would be possible to have one, let's call him a rich guy or gal, one rich guy or gal buy some according to what's best for themselves, but it won't be enough. Have you ever been to some events where, well, folks, we're not charging a price here today, but if you could just give what you feel this is worth to you, that'll work. Have you been at some events like that? We don't have a price on this, but you just put in this little jar what you think you can put in. What's it worth to you? When that's being posed to you, how do you and or others, maybe I won't put too much you to reveal too many things, but what might you or others tend to do in terms of your willingness to pay? Okay, you're obligated, but maybe not as much. What else did you say, Rob?
Like you support whatever you're doing, like overpay for it.
Okay, you might be willing to throw in some cases. So have you guys been to like, the conservatory or something like that, the flower gardens, and sometimes they'll have the, here's a donation box. Just pay what you think this is worth, and those places are beautiful, right? I've been to some butterfly gardens. I mean, there's a lot of expense and beauty wrapped up into that. How do you think they do on their donation stuff? Does everybody walk in the door and pay? Do they reveal what they're willing to pay? It's kind of hard, isn't it? Right? So we've got that little self-interest. It's not always bad, but maybe there's even some uncertainty. Like before you get to the door, you're like, am I really going to like this or not? Maybe it's something innocent like that. Whereas if there was a price to get on it, and it was $15, and you wanted to see it, and you know that you're getting at least $15 worth of satisfaction, otherwise you wouldn't be there. You pay the price, you walk in, you get the $15. But if you donate it, would somebody maybe dip into their wallet and say, well, I got a $50 bill, and I got a $10 bill. 10 going to be enough? Drop in 60? Right? So when it comes down to it, are people going to pay what they're willing to pay? Economic theory predicts no under these circumstances. Although in a lot of cases, there's been a lot of recent research, kind of with that dictator game, ultimatum game that I showed you last time with the quick draw, that there is some amount of giving that people reveal. So the economist perspective that doesn't have any emotions or feelings might say, oh no, my marginal benefit is much less than $15. So 5 sounds good. I'll just throw in a 5. And so in theory, this could work if we all revealed, well, what are those bombs worth to us? And we all just chipped in. Some people don't have as much money, right? So if we talk about income, somebody making $100,000 a year versus somebody making $20,000 a year, should they both have to pay the same amount for the bomb? Or would it be more fair to have the rich person pay a little bit more than the poor person, right?
Isn't that like kind of like how you do taxes? Like instead of doing that, like
that ends up being, yes, that's one of the theories on how we do it with taxes. Yeah, we'll be kind of getting there eventually. But right now, I want to just think about what would you be willing to voluntarily do. And so economists call this the free rider problem. The free rider problem. People don't tend to reveal their true preferences, and so they catch a free ride on somebody else. If the rich guy's going to make a bomb, that's good enough for me. I'm just going to, if they make it, then I'll just catch a free ride on them. If you guys are doing a group project where there's 4 to 5 of you working on the project, have you ever run into the free rider problem?
Yep.
Yeah, usually there's a free rider problem. That's one of the big things with some group work here at the university. That's exactly what's going on here, is that there's a tendency for people, without the motivation for their individual grade, if they know that the group is going to be graded on an A, B, C, or D, and I've got a couple of you Smart 4.0 students that are in my group, and I'm like, I want to be in that group, right? I'm going to be in that group, and then I can just kind of sit to the side, maybe I'll say a couple things, but I'm on your group. I know that they care about their grades. So the person who's the 4.0 doesn't want to lose that 4.0. And so if they have to, they're going to do the whole paper themselves. And it's going to be awesome because they're smart. And so I'm just going to free ride on that person. That's the same thing that goes on with public goods in terms of people revealing their willingness to pay. People don't tend to reveal that. So the free rider problem is consumers not revealing their true willingness to pay in order to benefit from someone else who has paid. So it might lead to an underpayment. So again, let's all chip in. Let's all chip in for a wedding present. You know, we're going to the thing, and we're a family, and it's some distant cousin. And maybe it'd be good if we all, instead of giving little gifts, that we all just got one big gift for them, right? Have you guys been in that type of situation before, right? And so you might kind of say, well, we've got somebody who's fairly well off. Like, well, what if we all just threw $50 into a pot, and then we could get a nice gift? But then that includes Larry, who lives in the double-wide trailer and is kind of out of a job, and we want Larry to be part of the group too. So maybe it's okay if we all just kind of put into the pot different amounts, you know. And so do we all just throw in? You guys put in whatever you think is good, and then we'll go out and get a gift. We might have a tendency to underrepresent what we're willing to pay for that wedding gift. That is the free rider problem. Okay, questions there? So, the political marketplace. In the political markets, we can think of our supply and demand framework, although it's a little bit odd. So we've got the political market. So we've got the voters and firms over here. So in your picture that you got with your handout, if you're looking at that, I've got a picture of the households and businesses all being on the same side. But now we're going to think about them being voters and firms. And we've got an exchange going on where these guys would like some public goods coming their way. They would like some public goods coming from the government, who we're going to characterize as politicians and bureaucrats. Politicians and a bureaucrat. What's the difference there between a bureaucrat, sometimes it's used the same way, versus a politician? How do we get our politicians into office? Election, and we vote them in. A bureaucrat's an employee of the government. And so they're the ones that work there to try to get the stuff done. So the politician might vote for, hey, let's build some new bridges and roads. And the bureaucrats would be the government employees that actually maybe do the plans, contract with the contractors, you know, whatever. So these are government employees. And so they're the ones providing public goods to voters and firms. What do they pay with? What do voters and firms pay with? Tax money, right? So they pay with some taxes. But we all pay taxes. What else do they do?
They also do like benefits to whoever they're working with.
With the politician? Are you talking about whatever politician they might have? Or what do you mean who they're working with?
Like if the government needs whatever company they hired,
Okay.
they might like give like tax
They might give some job, some extra benefits to them. Excuse me. I've got this. I'm not really sick, I don't think. I have this stupid allergy cough that I get every spring and fall. Okay, so we get voters and firms playing with what do politicians really want next election? They want votes, right? And if you're a company or an individual, what else do politicians like if they really want your support? And they want you to get, maybe there's going to be some favorable treatment, wink, wink, since you own an asphalt company and we need to build some roads. What might that company also like to do for their person that they would like to see in office? Support money, yes. Campaign contributions, right? So votes and campaign contributions. Now this is special money that's going across. So we got votes and campaign contributions, public goods and public policy in terms of laws. Is the trades that are going on. And I say that kind of avoiding putting taxes here, because if we think in the long run, taxes can be changed. How do we get taxes changed? We put maybe somebody new in office. How do we get somebody new in office? Vote and campaign contributions. Right? So we got this political marketplace that's probably a little different way than you thought about it before. This is the way economists think. We always start to go back to some sort of supply and demand and what's really being traded here. Where do our values lie? All right. So voters maximize utility. Voters are just humans. They're just people, just like we had in our utility chapter. Voters maximize utility according to their self-interest. Now this is more of the assumptions of the model. According to self-interest. Now I've tried to hammer this point throughout the semester. Does self-interest equal selfishness? Is selfish and self-interest the same thing? No, right? So we can be self-interested and still care about other people and other things, and that could include a large group of people. So whether you're swinging to the left or swinging to the right, the claim of self-interest is different. It's not selfishness, but self-interest. So voters are looking to maximize utility, and firms, what are they looking to maximize? Profit. Good. So we got voters and firms. Firms are looking to maximize profit. And in an effort to maximize profit, they might be able to capture some politicians. Can they buy a politician? Do you think once in a while politicians get bought? Yes, right? So firms maximize profits. We're not going to hold them back for that. But if there's laws in place, they might be able to capture politicians. So to maximize profit, they may try to capture, is the word that we use in this literature, this line of thinking here. They may try to capture politicians with campaign contributions. All right. Politicians. I'm just kind of going through each one of our players here. We got voters and firms on this side. What are the politicians? What is their objective in life? Job security? What else do they want to do? So what does job security mean for the politician? Re-election, to get re-elected, right? So their objective is to stay in office. So politicians, they are the entrepreneurs of this market. They are the entrepreneurs of the political market and have the objective of getting elected and staying in office. Getting elected. Oh, Rush, you're being way too harsh. Those kind souls are giving up their time to serve the public good. Aren't they? Aren't they here to serve us? Isn't that what public life's all about? Well, in theory, that's a nice thought. And sometimes we see it. There are some good individuals out there that really want to serve their fellow human beings by taking a spot in public office. But economists have found some interesting details when we start to think of it a little differently here. We observe some things in the real world that may not be consistent with serving the public good. And then we ask ourselves, well, why? Right? Well, what are the incentives? What's going on in this political marketplace that might give us some outcomes that we don't like? Well, if we start to characterize politicians this way, then it starts to make sense. And as we start to characterize businesses this way, then it starts to make sense why we start to have this system that's gravitating maybe to a place we don't want to be, that might not be optimal for society through a democracy. Are you saying the democratic process could lead to some inefficient outcomes? It's possible. In theory, on paper, that wouldn't necessarily happen. But in reality, given the incentive system, the incentive structure that we have, that might not come out. We got one last group here, bureaucrats. Bureaucrats. I think I butchered bureaucrats there. That's all right. Bureaucrats. Sometimes they might need to be butchered. So the bureaucrats are the employees of the government. Federal, state, local, whatever, it doesn't matter. Any level of government. What is their objective? Job security. So we can go back to the self-interest thing, right? Is that's a human being on that side that's living in the White House. If we go back to the people, which is what I like to focus on, we got people in businesses, we got people in the White House over here, we got people in their household that wear different hats during the day. They're all these people are ultimately trying to maximize their own satisfaction, maximize utility. And so what is the incentive for an employee to do if they are looking out for kind of themselves or their department when it comes down to budgets? Do they want it big or small? They want it big. Yes. Right? So if they're trying to make their job seem important, well, there better be some dollars being thrown into it. And so each one of them comes up with a budget for the roads that they need to put in or whatever public good they're serving. Right? And so they have every incentive to try to keep that budget big because that gives them more job security. Right? So employees of the government have incentive to keep budgets big for job security. For job security. All right. So when we have incentives characterized this way, what would be your prediction about the size of government spending in the market economy with the democracy set up this way, if these are the incentives? It gets bigger and bigger. And that's what this kind of field of economics called public choice theory. So instead of thinking about the public good, we think about the individual incentives and choices that the individuals within the system are making, and the prediction would be that we'd start to lead to bigger and bigger spending, bigger and bigger budgets.
Doesn't like societies of like the number of people just gets bigger and bigger too?
Yeah, that's true. You know, there definitely should be. And in fact, as we work our way through the system in theory, if there's more of a threat from terrorists because they knocked down a couple of our big, beautiful buildings over on the East Coast or something, then that would cause there to be more spending done, right? And so, yes, there might be a natural inclination. We should maybe expect to see some growth as the population of the United States gets bigger and bigger over time. So that's a possibility, but how big is it? What is the rate of growth of that? In macro class, we'll spend a little bit of time. Some of you have had macro. If we look at government spending, it's kind of like a hockey stick right now. And so the last 50 years since World War II, this is government spending if I show you a chart on it. It's what we call a hockey stick. It looks like this for 200 years, and then the last 40 years looks like this. And then you start asking yourself, did the population grow like this? So if we match population growth with government growth, that would be one way to kind of look at how much it should have grown or could have grown, right? All right. So we got another problem we haven't talked about yet, and that's with the voters. Who has the most incentive to look out for both the benefits and the costs of additional weapons? Who has the most incentive to look out for benefits and costs? The voters or the bureaucrats and politicians?
The voters should, but the bureaucrats do.
Okay, the voters should. I like that. Yeah, in theory, the voters should. Why might not they pay that close attention to the details of the optimal quantity of weapons to have in our arsenal? It's complicated. And so in order to learn about it, what do you got to do? Yeah, just a little bit of time, 5 minutes? Days, weeks, years to come up with the level of detail of kind of trying to get your arms around maybe even just the national defense issue, just that issue alone. Let alone all the other issues that we have with the welfare programs and the level of unemployment insurance and Social Security and all the other issues. That's just at the federal level. What's going on in the city of Ottawa with the local government? Are we staying up to speed with how much the government's spending on the sidewalk project? Have you noticed that there's some new pavement going on in Ottawa? Right? Did we all vote for that? Did we pay attention? Did we put somebody in office that we feel comfortable that that's the right amount of asphalt to be putting down in the new roads? Does anybody pay attention to those details? Can anybody pay attention to those details? Would it be rational to pay attention to those details? That's where the economist comes in. Would it be rational for any individual to pay attention to all those details so that they could be an informed voter on every issue? Is that rational? No. And that brings us to this topic of rational ignorance. Rational ignorance. Now, what does it mean to be ignorant? Does that mean you're stupid? You're not informed. You're uninformed, right? So if you're rationally ignorant, what does that tell you about your ignorance? If you are rationally ignorant,
It's justified.
it's justified. How? Yes, that's true. Why is your ignorance justified for you? Because it's a waste of time, right? So I have a certain amount of time in my day. If I'm not researching what the city of Ottawa is doing with their asphalt paving project and their sidewalks, could I be doing something else with my time? Yes, right? So I'm doing a little marginal cost, marginal benefit. I'm a little rational agent. I'm a human being. I think about what are the benefits of partaking in an hour's worth of research on the asphalt sidewalk project, and what's the cost of partaking in a research project, right? If the benefits of researching the sidewalk asphalt paving project do not exceed the cost, am I not serving my job as an American citizen? Perhaps, but are you being rational about it? Is that a pretty smart way to run your life? Yeah. That's what an economist would say. If the benefits to you aren't at least as much as the cost to you, don't do it. That's not rational. So, what is the benefit of me staying informed on the issues? Let's think about the benefit for a second. What is the benefit of staying informed on the issues? Let me ask you, I want you to think about that. So suppose you are keeping track of stuff. I just want to isolate what is the true marginal benefit of you staying up on all the issues.
There really isn't all knowledge.
There really isn't any why.
Because
You got the knowledge. I agree with you guys there. There is some benefit, perhaps.
you have the knowledge, but unless every voter stays up on it, you're not going to change it.
That's what's kind of funny here, right? In order for you to make a difference on that vote that's coming up at the ballot box on the asphalt sidewalk project, in order for you to be the one to make the difference, what needs to be true in that election of 13,000 people? You are the deciding vote. You got to be the deciding vote, technically. Now, are we going to know whether we're the deciding vote or not? How many elections come down to one vote? Very, 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 very few. I don't think I said enough varies, but I wanted to stop at some point. So if we took all the elections that are going on throughout the world in even 1 year on any given issue, how many times do they come down to one vote? Not very often. What incentive does that give you then, if we're doing a rational analysis of the expected benefits of me staying informed, or is my vote perhaps going to be effectively meaningless? Your vote's meaningless. Don't listen to MTV. They're wrong. Your vote does not count. You do not have a voice. No, I don't really want to say that whole thing. Am I recording this? Ooh, I am recording this. So we don't want to maybe go that far, because I think just the opposite. I mean, I do think to some level we should participate and attempt to stay informed to some degree. And if you're really passionate about it, one incentive for you to be informed, if there's an issue that you're really incentive, your vote might not matter, but what could you do to possibly swing the vote? Start what? Activist, yes. Be an activist, right? Start to sway your friends. Hey, you trust me, I trust you. I've looked at the issues. Here's the deal. I don't want to waste too much of your time, but vote yes in this election. And since Ethan kind of knows me a little bit and he thinks I've done my research, then he says, you know what, I will. And maybe I'll even sign a petition or something that he's going to vote. And then I go to the next one, and then I go to the next one. If I'm an activist and I feel passionate, I might be able to swing the vote getting the word out. But on any given issue, my particular impact might not be very much. All right, so rational ignorance. Rational ignorance. One of my favorites here, RI. Rational ignorance is a choice by a voter to stay uninformed because the expected marginal benefit of staying informed is less than the expected marginal cost of staying informed. Wow, economic analysis is pretty easy. Yeah, it's me. It's just hard to make it stick a lot of times. Throughout the course, marginal revenue, marginal cost, marginal benefit, marginal cost, marginal utility, all of these decisions kind of come down to the same thing. Look at the benefits, look at the cost. If the marginal benefit is less than the marginal cost, don't do it. In fact, back up and do less of it, right? Or keep moving until those two things are equalized. Keep moving and going one way. All right, so what is the impact of rational ignorance? What is the impact of rational ignorance? Okay, so here is here's our graph. Let me start doing this type of notation now. We're dealing with a public good, so the social benefit has that vertical summation business going with it. But at the end of the day, it's our good old supply and demand curve that we've learned to love in this class. Where the two lines cross, that gives us the allocatively efficient level of the public good. And that would be the value to society, whatever it is, of the missiles or whatever. Drinking fountains, I don't know. And through the democratic process, we are able to learn what that efficient level is. If I now have rationally ignorant voters who don't stay informed on the issues, and I have politicians and bureaucrats that might be wanting bigger budgets, what happens here to the actual quantity we observe in society relative to the allocatively efficient quantity? Would it tend to be higher or lower? We got rationally ignorant voters. They're just kind of staying out of the picture. They're not doing their research, right? It's just too much effort. It's a waste of time. And we'd expect them to do that. Higher? Why do you say that? I'd agree with you there. Zach?
The people campaigning know that we're not going to stay informed on every issue.
Okay. So why would that lead to a provision that's higher than here?
It'd be so easy just to make money off of people.
Yeah, kind of. It's easier to pass bigger budgets, isn't it? So if we look at the quantity of the public good being, let me pick something somewhat obnoxious here, and this one might be, well, let's just say, I guess, the 100 missiles in our arsenal. When a proposal comes out from the bureaucrat that says, I think we should have 140 missiles, would that bureaucrat have incentive to do that? The employee of the government? Yes, because they're going for bigger budgets, right? So more spending means a bigger budget. So their proposal, their incentive system, is to propose a bigger budget. Who keeps them in check? Who would be the ones keeping them in check? The informed people, right. But if those informed people aren't there, then they don't really understand maybe the benefits and the cost. Is there some benefit to adding the missiles? Yes. So that's the point that's kind of key here. is that there is some benefit. The benefit is still positive. The benefit might be, I don't know, $5 worth of benefit from the 140th missile. The cost of that missile is up here, but we don't talk about the cost. When we make the proposal, we got terrorists out there, people. We got to be careful. We got to have some weapons, right? Is what the push is for the level of spending. And if we have a rationally ignorant voter that's not watching out for either the benefits or the costs, then they will tend to market that, hey, you know the benefits of having a lot of missiles, right? You know it's here. And in fact, a bigger national defense would be even better. Look at the benefits I'm getting now. So as long as there's positive benefits and rationally ignorant voters, we might even get down to Kyler's point here. Even the bureaucrat's not dumb enough to go to where the negative point is, right? But as long as there's some perceived benefit to an extra missile, and rationally ignorant voters that aren't keeping tabs on that, we tend to see the over-provision of the public good. So with rational expectations, with rational ignorance, that's a different topic. With rational ignorance, the public good tends to be over-provided, which isn't the best language here, but the over-provision of the public good, overproduced relative to the allocatively efficient quantity. And those bureaucrats might be able to push it all the way to the marginal benefit of the last one produces 0. So the key conclusion that we get from rational ignorance is an over-provision of the public good. All right. I wanted to put up here under the rational ignorance comment too, kind of an overarching theme. We have a pattern for rational thought. If the expected marginal benefits of an action, we use the word expected because some of the benefits we might not know very well, right? But we can hopefully try to calculate the expected benefits. If the expected marginal benefits of an action are greater than or equal to the expected marginal cost, then do it. Produce that unit. Buy that extra slice of pizza. Buy that extra bomb. Right? Then do it. If not, don't. This is the assumption of rationality in economics. All right, that will kill off chapter 16. We'll see you on Monday.